The rain pattered against the train window like nervous fingers. Matching the anxious rhythm of my heart, I shifted uncomfortably in my seat, trying to make myself smaller as water dripped from my soaked jacket onto the worn fabric below. The last passenger to board before departure, I'd been caught in a sudden downpour without an umbrella. Just another oversight in my increasingly chaotic life as a single mother. "Sorry," I mumbled to no one in particular, tucking a strand of damp hair behind my ear. The train to Chicago was nearly full, the evening commute drawing the usual crowd of suited professionals heading home to their comfortable suburban lives. Lives I once thought I'd have before Mark disappeared with our savings, leaving me alone with our 3-year-old daughter and a mountain of debt. I glanced at my phone, reading another text from Mrs. Wheeler, the elderly neighbor watching Lily tonight. "She's asking for you again. When will you be home?" My chest tightened. This late-night interview at the Meridian Hotel was my last hope for a decent job, with hours that wouldn't require me to miss my daughter's childhood. I'd spent my last $20 on the train fare. The doors closed with a hydraulic hiss, and I exhaled, grateful to have made it despite the rain. That's when I noticed him. He occupied the aisle seat beside me. Though occupied felt like too small a word for his presence. The man commanded the space without effort, his broad shoulders wrapped in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than 6 months of my rent. His profile was sharp, strong jaw dusted with calculated stubble, straight nose, dark eyes focused on the document in his hand. He smelled of something expensive and woodsy, a stark contrast to the wet wool scent of my second-hand coat. I shrank further against the window, acutely aware of every imperfection in my appearance: chipped nail polish, worn shoes, the makeup I'd hastily applied in a gas station bathroom. People like him didn't sit next to people like me, not by choice. The train lurched forward, and I fumbled with my bag, a cheap leather tote that had seen better days. My folder of carefully printed resumes slipped out, scattering across the floor between us. "I'm so sorry," I gasped, mortification burning through me as I bent to retrieve them. His hand, large, with an expensive-looking watch peeking from beneath his cuff, reached down at the same time. Our fingers brushed, and an unexpected current traveled up my arm. "Allow me," he said, his voice deep and smooth like aged whiskey. With efficient movements, he gathered the papers, briefly glancing at the top page before handing them back. "You're applying to the Meridian?" I nodded, unable to find my voice as his dark eyes assessed me, not in the dismissive way I'd grown accustomed to, but with an intensity that seemed to catalog every detail of my face. "As a concierge," I finally managed, accepting the folder. "I have an interview tonight." Something flickered in his expression. Interest, perhaps, or amusement. "The Meridian has high standards." The statement hung between us, neither question nor insult, yet I felt compelled to defend myself. "I speak 3 languages. I worked in hospitality before. Before I had my daughter. Before Mark had convinced me to quit my job, promising to provide for us both. Before he gambled away our future and vanished." The stranger's expression remained unreadable, but I sensed a shift in his attention, a sharpening of focus that made the small hairs on my neck rise. "You have a child?" he asked, his tone casual yet somehow demanding an answer. "A daughter. She's 3. I didn't know why I was sharing this with a stranger, but something about his question made it impossible not to respond. He nodded once, as if confirming something to himself. "Children need stability." "They do," I agreed, thinking of Lily's confusion each time we'd had to move to cheaper apartments, her tears when I'd sold our car, her nightmares asking for a father who would never return. That's why this job is so important. The train swayed as it picked up speed, forcing me to brace myself against the window. When I looked back, the stranger was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite place. "What's your name?" he asked. I hesitated, my mother's warnings about strangers flickering through my mind. But we were on a public train, surrounded by people. "Emma," I answered. "Emma Reeves." "Emma," he repeated, as if testing how it felt on his tongue. He didn't offer his own name in return. The overhead lights flickered, and for a moment, shadows played across his features, highlighting the controlled power in his jawline, the calculating intelligence in his eyes. Something about him reminded me of a documentary I'd once watched about predators. Beautiful, mesmerizing, and undeniably dangerous. "You seem nervous, Emma," he observed, his accent carrying a faint European inflection I couldn't place. "The interview?" "Partly," I admitted, not wanting to confess that his proximity was equally unnerving. "It's been a while since I've had to sell myself." His lips curved slightly at my phrasing, and heat bloomed in my cheeks as I realized the unintentional double meaning. "Poor choice of words," I mumbled. "On the contrary," he replied, "we all sell ourselves in one way or another. The trick is determining your value." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again. Another text from Mrs. Wheeler. "Lily won't stop crying. Says she's scared of the thunder." My heart clenched. "I'm sorry, I need to call my daughter. She's afraid of storms." Without waiting for his response, I dialed Mrs. Wheeler's number, turning slightly toward the window. Lily's tearful voice came through immediately. "Mommy, when are you coming home?" "Soon, baby," I promised, keeping my voice steady despite the knot in my throat. "Remember what we talked about? Mommy has an important meeting, and then I'll come right back." "But the sky is angry," she whimpered. "The sky isn't angry, sweetheart. It's just playing drums. Like we do with your pots and pans, remember?" I made a soft drumming sound that coaxed a watery giggle from her. "Can you play drums when you get home?" "It might be late, but we can play tomorrow morning. I promise." I felt rather than saw the stranger's attention on me, absorbing every word of my conversation. "Now be brave for Mrs. Wheeler, okay? Mommy loves you to the moon. And all the way back," she finished, our familiar exchange providing comfort, despite the distance between us. After hanging up, I turned to find the stranger watching me with undisguised interest. Something in his expression had softened, though the intensity remained. "You're good with her," he said. It wasn't a question. "She's all I have," I replied simply. The train announcement interrupted us, stating we were approaching my stop. I began gathering my things, suddenly aware I'd been so distracted I hadn't reviewed my interview notes. "The Meridian's executive chef is French. He respects those who can pronounce his specialties correctly," the stranger said unexpectedly. "The concierge desk faces east. Mention the morning light as a detail you noticed, and the hotel prides itself on handling guest requests within 4 minutes, not the industry standard 5. I stared at him, confused. "How do you know all that?" Instead of answering, he reached into his jacket and extracted a business card, offering it between 2 fingers. "When is your interview?" 8 o'clock, I answered automatically, accepting the card. Heavy stock, minimalist design, with just a name, Alexei Volkov, and a phone number. "You'll be late," he stated, checking his watch. "The hotel is a 15-minute walk from the station." Panic fluttered in my chest. "I can't be late. I can't lose this opportunity. My driver is waiting. He'll take you." The train began slowing, and passengers stood, creating a barrier between us and the exit. I clutched my folder, alarm bells ringing in my head. Get into a stranger's car? Every cautionary tale and true crime podcast warned against such foolishness. "I couldn't," I started. "You can." He cut me off, standing in one fluid motion. "And you will, unless you prefer to miss this important opportunity." The way he said it made me wonder if he knew something I didn't. As if reading my thoughts, he added, "I have connections at the Meridian." The train stopped, doors opening to release a flood of passengers. Without waiting for my response, he placed his hand lightly against my lower back, guiding me toward the exit. I should have pulled away. I should have insisted on taking a taxi I couldn't afford, or running through the rain I wasn't dressed for. Instead, I let him lead me off the train and into the crowded station. A large man in a dark suit materialized beside us almost immediately. "The car is ready, sir," he said, his eyes briefly scanning me before returning to Alexei with unquestioning obedience. "Take Ms. Reeves to the Meridian," Alexei instructed. "Ensure she arrives dry and on time." "Yes, sir." The man nodded, then extended his arm toward the exit. I hesitated, clutching my folder to my chest like a shield. "I don't understand. Why would you help me?" Alexei's eyes held mine, something possessive flickering in their depths. "Let's call it an investment," he said, his voice low enough that only I could hear. "I'll be in touch after your interview, Emma Reeves." The way he said my name sent another shiver through me, part warning, part thrill. I opened my mouth to decline, to thank him but refuse, to follow my instincts screaming that this man was not someone I should be indebted to. Instead, what came out was, "How will you know how it goes?" His smile then, slow, confident, predatory, should have terrified me. And it did. But it also awakened something I'd thought long dead after years of struggle and betrayal: curiosity, interest, desire. "I always know," he replied simply. "Now go. Don't keep them waiting." As the driver led me toward the exit, I glanced back once. Alexei stood perfectly still amid the flowing crowd, watching me leave with an expression of absolute certainty, like a man who had found something he'd been looking for and had no intention of letting it slip away. I didn't realize then that I had just made the most consequential mistake of my life. Not by being late, not by sitting in that particular seat on the train, but by catching the eye of a man who collected beautiful, broken things and kept them forever. The sleek black Bentley cut through the rain like a shark through dark waters. I sat rigid in the back seat, my reflection ghostly in the tinted windows as we glided past the illuminated storefronts of downtown Chicago. The driver, Nikolai, he'd tersely introduced himself, hadn't spoken since helping me into the car, his broad shoulders and vigilant eyes more suited to a bodyguard than a chauffeur. My mind raced with questions about the stranger on the train, Alexei Volkov. The name rolled around my thoughts like a foreign coin. Who was he to command such respect? To have a car like this waiting? To offer help to someone like me? I turned his business card over in my hands. The paper was thick, expensive, with a subtle watermark visible when tilted toward the light. Just a name and number, no title, no company. Men who needed neither introduction nor explanation. "We're approaching the Meridian, Ms. Reeves," Nikolai announced, his accent similar to Alexei's, but heavier, rougher around the edges. The hotel rose before us, a gleaming tower of glass and stone, its entrance flanked by uniformed doormen, beneath a sweeping canopy. My stomach tightened. Places like this had once been familiar territory, before Lily, before Mark, before my life collapsed into a struggle for survival. Now it felt like entering a foreign country without proper documentation. "Mr. Volkov has arranged for you to be met," Nikolai said as we pulled to a stop. "Arranged?" I echoed, alarm prickling along my spine. "What do you mean?" Instead of answering, Nikolai exited the car and opened my door, shielding me from the rain with an umbrella as a woman in a tailored suit approached from the hotel entrance. "Ms. Reeves?" she inquired, her smile professional but her eyes curious, assessing me in a way that made me acutely conscious of my rain-dampened appearance. "I'm Vanessa Chen, HR Director. We've been expecting you." I swallowed hard, extending my hand. "Thank you for the opportunity to interview." "I hope I'm not late. Not at all. In fact, you're precisely on time." She glanced briefly at the Bentley before guiding me inside. "I understand you're acquainted with Mr. Volkov." It wasn't a question, but I felt compelled to correct her. "We just met. On the train. He offered his driver when he learned I had an interview here." Something flashed across her face. Surprise, perhaps, or disbelief. "Mr. Volkov offered you his personal driver." "Yes," I confirmed, uncertain why this seemed so significant. "Is that unusual?" Vanessa's laugh was brief and without humor. "In the 5 years he's owned the Meridian, I've never known him to offer anyone his driver." She paused as we stepped into an elevator reserved for staff. "Or to personally call about a job candidate." My heart skipped. "He called you? About me? 20 minutes ago." She studied me with renewed interest. "He suggested we consider you for a different position than the one you applied for. Something more substantial." The elevator doors closed, and I felt a peculiar sense of doors closing in my life as well. Options narrowing, paths disappearing. I applied for the concierge position. "Yes, and your resume is impressive for that role, but Mr. Volkov thought you might be better suited as his personal assistant at the hotel." The elevator climbed smoothly upward, but I felt as though the floor had dropped from beneath me. His personal assistant? But I've never. The position hasn't been publicly listed, Vanessa continued. Mr. Volkov is quite particular about his staff. She gave me another assessing look, though he's never personally recommended a candidate before. The elevator opened directly into a luxurious office suite. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased Chicago's glittering skyline, the storm lending a dramatic backdrop to the minimalist space dominated by a massive desk of dark wood and steel. This would be your primary workspace, Vanessa explained, when Mr. Volkov is in residence. He divides his time between Chicago, New York, and various international locations. I moved toward the windows, momentarily transfixed by the view and the implications of what was happening. Ms. Chen, I appreciate the consideration, but I came to interview for the concierge position. I'm a single mother. I need predictable hours, stability. The salary is triple what you'd earn as a concierge, she interjected, with full benefits, including comprehensive health care and childcare allowance. My breath caught. Triple. With health care. Lily's recurring ear infections had already maxed out my credit cards, and our apartment's heating was unreliable at best. With that kind of money, we could move somewhere safe, somewhere warm. What exactly would the job entail? I asked, hating the tremor in my voice. Managing Mr. Volkov's schedule while he's at the Meridian, coordinating with his other properties, handling sensitive communications and ensuring his privacy. She paused. The hours can be demanding, but you'd have resources for childcare. Your daughter would want for nothing. The mention of Lily sent a chill through me. How do you know about my daughter? Mr. Volkov mentioned you have a 3-year-old. Vanessa's tone remained pleasant, but her eyes had hardened slightly. He's very thorough. But I'd only told him about Lily on the train, less than an hour ago. The idea that he'd not only called ahead but shared details about my personal life made me deeply uneasy. Yet beneath the unease was a whisper of something else, a dangerous curiosity about a man who could rearrange the pieces of my broken life with a single phone call. Why me? I asked finally. You must have more qualified candidates. Vanessa smiled thinly. Mr. Volkov makes decisions based on instinct, and his instincts are rarely wrong. The position is yours if you want it. She glanced at her watch. He'll be here in 30 minutes if you'd like to discuss it with him directly. My pulse jumped. He's coming here? Tonight? This is his hotel, she replied simply. Would you like some time to consider the offer? I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Vanessa led me to a smaller adjoining office where I could gather my thoughts, and left me with a tablet containing details of the position and benefits package. Alone, I sank into a leather chair that probably cost more than everything I owned. My fingers trembled as I scrolled through the information. The salary made me dizzy, more money than I'd ever earned, enough to transform Lily's life and mine. But between the lines of the job description, I sensed expectations beyond professional obligation. I pulled out my phone and stared at Mrs. Wheeler's last text. Lily finally asleep. Don't worry. Take your time. My throat tightened. What kind of mother would I be to refuse this opportunity? And what kind would I be to accept a position from a man who made every instinct scream both danger and desire? The office door opened without a knock, and Alexei Volkov stepped inside. He moved with the same controlled power I'd noticed on the train, but here, in this environment of wealth and authority, the effect was magnified. His suit jacket was gone, leaving him in a crisp white shirt with sleeves rolled precisely to the elbows, revealing forearms corded with muscle and an expensive watch that caught the light. Behind him, 2 men waited in the outer office, Nikolai and another equally imposing figure. Emma, he said, my name again sounding like something valuable on his tongue. I trust Ms. Chen has explained the opportunity. I stood, determined to meet him on equal footing despite the turmoil inside me. She did. Though she couldn't explain why you'd offer a position of such trust to someone you met an hour ago on a train. He approached, close enough that I caught that same woodsy scent, undercut now with something warmer, like amber. You needed a job. I need someone with your particular qualities. You know nothing about my qualities. His eyes, dark as espresso, I now realized, traveled over my face. I know more than you think, Emma Reeves. Born in Michigan. Graduated with honors from Cornell's hospitality program, married to Mark Reeves for 4 years until he disappeared with your savings, and left you with crushing debt and a 2-year-old daughter. He paused, noting my shock. I know you've worked 3 jobs simultaneously trying to stay afloat. I know your daughter's name is Lily, that she's afraid of thunderstorms, and that you've sold nearly everything of value you own except your grandmother's wedding ring. My hand instinctively covered the simple gold band I wore on a chain beneath my blouse. How could you possibly? I make it my business to know what's mine. The words, spoken softly but with absolute conviction, should have sent me running. Instead, they rooted me to the spot, caught between outrage and a terrible, treacherous fascination. I'm not yours, I said, finding my voice. You can't just research me and decide. But I have decided. He stepped closer, and I forced myself not to retreat. The only question is whether you're brave enough to accept what I'm offering. A job, I clarified, needing to define boundaries that already felt dangerously blurred. Something like amusement flickered in his eyes. For now, yes, a job. Why? I demanded. Why me? Why like this? He considered me for a long moment. Because you remind me of something I lost once. Because you have fire despite everything that's happened to you. His voice dropped lower. And because when our hands touched on that train, you felt it too. Heat bloomed in my chest, spreading upward to my face. I couldn't deny the electric current I'd felt at his touch, but I wasn't about to admit it either. I have a child to think about, I said instead. I can't make decisions based on momentary connections. On the contrary, he countered. That's precisely why you should consider my offer, for your daughter's sake. He turned to the window, hands in his pockets, a casual stance that nonetheless radiated authority. The concierge position you came for pays barely enough to cover your rent and daycare. You'd still be working weekends at that coffee shop and taking translation gigs at night. Lily would continue seeing you exhausted, stressed, unable to provide the stability she deserves. Each word struck with painful accuracy. And working for you would be better? I challenged, even as part of me already knew I would accept, had perhaps decided the moment he offered his driver in the rain. Working for me would transform your circumstances overnight. He turned back to me, a new apartment in a safe neighborhood. Quality childcare, financial security, all in exchange for your loyalty and discretion. Loyalty and discretion about what, exactly? His smile was slight, but knowing. My business affairs are complex and often confidential. I need someone I can trust. You can't trust someone you just met. I trust my instincts about people. They've kept me alive. The phrasing sent another chill through me. What kind of man spoke about staying alive rather than being successful? As if sensing my thoughts, he added. I have interests in real estate, hospitality, and private equity across several countries. Some of my competitors are unscrupulous. Discretion is therefore essential. The explanation sounded reasonable enough, but instinct told me there were depths he wasn't revealing. Still, was I in any position to refuse? My interview clothes had been purchased at a thrift store. My electricity had been shut off twice this year. Lily deserved better than the life I was barely providing. If I accept, I said carefully, I would need predictable hours. My daughter would have the best care money can buy, he interrupted. A nanny, if you wish, or placement at the Meridian Staff Childcare Center, whichever makes you more comfortable. The idea of Lily in a safe, warm place while I worked, not miles away at a daycare I could barely afford, was almost overwhelming. I would need to think about it, I said, clinging to the last threads of caution. Of course. He reached into his pocket and extracted a small key card. Stay here tonight. Consider the offer carefully. The presidential suite has been prepared for you. I stared at the key card. I need to get home to my daughter. Your neighbor, Mrs. Wheeler, has already been contacted. A car will bring Lily here in the morning, along with whatever you both need for a few days. Shock rendered me momentarily speechless. You contacted my neighbor? Without my permission? I anticipated you might want time to consider, he replied unapologetically. And I assumed you wouldn't want to leave your daughter overnight. You had no right, I said, anger finally breaking through my confusion. You can't just arrange my life without my consent. Something darkened in his expression then. a glimpse of what might lie beneath the controlled exterior. "You're right," he conceded, though his tone suggested the admission cost him. "I overstepped. My associate simply confirmed that your daughter was safe and offered Mrs. Wheeler compensation for extended child care. The choice to bring Lily here tomorrow is entirely yours." The explanation did little to ease my discomfort, but exhaustion was setting in, blunting the edges of my outrage. The thought of returning to my cold apartment, of waking Lily to take her home on public transit at this hour, suddenly seemed impossible. "One night," I said firmly. "I'll stay one night and give you my answer in the morning." Satisfaction settled over his features. "Excellent. Nikolai will show you to the suite." He reached out, his fingers brushing my arm in a touch so light it might have been accidental, if not for the intentness of his gaze. "Rest well, Emma. Tomorrow is the beginning of a new life for you and Lily." As Nikolai led me toward the elevator, I glanced back at Alexei. He stood silhouetted against the storm-darkened windows, watching me with the unwavering attention of someone who had claimed ownership of something precious. I stepped into the elevator, the doors closing between us like a blade dropping. Only then did I release the breath I'd been holding. The business card still clutched in my hand, the imprint of his touch still burning on my skin. I didn't know it then, but I had already entered his world. A gilded cage whose bars would only become visible once it was too late to escape. Morning light streamed through windows I had been too exhausted to properly close the night before. For a disorienting moment, I couldn't remember where I was. The sheets were too soft, the silence too complete, the space around me too vast to be my cramped apartment. Then reality came rushing back. The Meridian. Alexei Volkov. The job offer that felt more like a carefully laid trap. I sat up in the enormous king-sized bed, taking in the presidential suite that had been mine for the night. Cream-colored walls, original artwork, furniture that whispered old money rather than shouting new wealth. The storm had passed, leaving Chicago gleaming beneath a clear blue sky, visible through floor-to-ceiling windows. My phone showed 3 missed calls from Mrs. Wheeler and a text from an unknown number. "Car waiting when you're ready." A knock at the door made me jump. I pulled on the hotel robe hanging in the bathroom and cautiously opened the door to find a young woman with a service cart. "Good morning, Ms. Reeves. Mr. Volkov thought you might appreciate breakfast." She wheeled the cart in with practiced efficiency, setting up a small feast by the window. Fresh fruit, pastries, a silver pot of coffee that filled the room with a rich aroma. "Thank you," I managed, self-consciousness washing over me. How many people knew I had spent the night here? What assumptions were being made? Mr. Volkov also had this delivered. She handed me a glossy shopping bag bearing the name of an expensive boutique located in the hotel's lobby. "He thought you might need a change of clothes." After she left, I peered into the bag with trepidation. Inside was a simple but elegant navy blue dress, exactly my size, along with matching shoes and a cashmere cardigan. The sight of them, the presumption behind them, made my skin prickle with both indignation and something dangerously close to pleasure. When was the last time anyone had considered my needs this way? I called Mrs. Wheeler while picking at a croissant that tasted better than anything I'd allowed myself in years. "Oh, thank heavens," she answered. "I've been worried sick. That man who called last night—" "I'm so sorry," I cut in. "It was a last-minute arrangement. What exactly did he say to you?" "Just that you'd been offered a job opportunity that required you to stay overnight, and that I would be compensated for watching Lily." Her voice lowered conspiratorially. "Emma, he sent a courier with an envelope containing $500, in cash." My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. 500. Mrs. Wheeler, that's ridiculous. I can't let you accept that. The courier said it was non-negotiable. "And frankly, dear, after what you've been through, I'm just happy someone seems to be looking out for you." She paused. "Though I did think it strange when another man came by this morning to pick up some of Lily's things." Ice formed in my veins. "Someone came to my apartment? Who? When?" "About an hour ago. Very polite. Said his name was Anton. Showed me some kind of identification. Said you'd requested clothes and toys for Lily because you were extending your stay." Her voice grew uncertain. "Did I do something wrong?" He had a key, Emma. A key. To my apartment. My hands trembled as I set down the coffee cup. No, you didn't do anything wrong. Is Lily okay? She's fine. Excited about seeing you. The man said a car would come for us around 10. After assuring Mrs. Wheeler I would call back soon, I ended the call and stood at the window, heart pounding. Alexei had sent someone to my apartment, someone with a key. Had accessed my home, my private space, my daughter's things. The violation sent anger surging through me, cutting through the haze of luxury and temptation that had clouded my judgment. I showered quickly, determined to confront him. The dress fit perfectly, another unsettling reminder of how much he already knew about me. As I slipped on the shoes, my phone chimed with another text from the unknown number. Suite 4200, when you're ready to talk. The executive floor of the Meridian exuded understated power. I was met by the same two men I'd seen the previous night, Nikolai and another whom I now assumed was Anton. Their faces remained impassive as Nikolai opened the door to a spacious office, where Alexei sat behind a desk, his attention focused on a laptop screen. You had someone enter my apartment, I said without preamble, my voice steadier than I felt. You had someone handle my daughter's things, without my permission. Alexei looked up, his expression unreadable. Good morning, Emma. He closed the laptop and stood, coming around the desk. Today he wore a gray suit that accentuated the breadth of his shoulders, the dark intensity of his eyes. The dress suits you. Did you hear what I said? I demanded, refusing to be distracted by his appearance or the compliment. You invaded my privacy. You sent a stranger to my home. Anton is my head of security, not a stranger. And yes, I had him collect what your daughter might need. He gestured toward a sitting area where I noticed a small pink backpack, Lily's backpack, alongside a stuffed elephant she never slept without. I assumed you'd prefer she have familiar things around her. That's not the point, I said, though the sight of Lily's beloved toy momentarily weakened my resolve. You can't just take over my life like this. I'm merely facilitating your transition, he replied, as if it were the most reasonable thing in the world. You need this job. Your daughter needs stability. I'm providing both. By breaking into my apartment, a flash of irritation crossed his face. Nothing was broken. The building superintendent was quite willing to provide access when shown the proper incentive. The implication that he had bribed my superintendent only fueled my anger. That's not how normal people behave, Mr. Volkov. Normal employers don't send men to access their employees' homes. They don't arrange childcare without permission. They don't... I'm not a normal employer, he cut in, his voice dropping to a register that sent an involuntary shiver through me. And this isn't a normal job offer. He moved closer, near enough that I could see flecks of amber in his dark eyes. You need more than a job, Emma. You need protection, security. Someone who can ensure you and your daughter never want for anything again. And that's you? I challenged, though my voice had lost some of its edge. A man I met yesterday? A man who apparently investigated my entire life within hours of meeting me? Yes, he answered simply. That's me. The conviction in his voice was almost hypnotic. I forced myself to step back, needing distance to think clearly. Why? Why me? And don't say it's because of some connection we had on a train. People don't upend their lives for momentary attractions. Something shifted in his expression then. A calculating look that made me realize he was deciding how much to reveal. Sit down, he said finally, gesturing to the couch. When I hesitated, he added, Please. I perched on the edge of the couch, watching as he poured 2 cups of coffee from a silver carafe on a side table. He handed me one, then sat across from me, his posture relaxed, yet somehow still commanding. I knew who you were before you got on that train, he said. The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. What? Your husband, Alexei continued, his eyes never leaving mine, stole more than just your savings when he disappeared. My hands tightened around the cup. What are you talking about? Mark Reeves worked for one of my associates. He was entrusted with handling certain financial transactions. Before he vanished, he diverted a significant sum of money that wasn't his to take. The room seemed to tilt slightly. Mark had been an investment advisor. At least that's what he'd told me. We'd met when I was working at an upscale hotel in New York, and he'd swept me off my feet with his confidence, his plans for our future. I'd never fully understood exactly what he did, only that it paid well and required late nights and international travel. "You're saying my husband stole from you?" I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. "Not directly from me, but from someone under my protection." Alexei set his cup down, his movements precise. "When your husband disappeared, my organization began looking for him. That search led eventually to you. I haven't seen or heard from Mark in over a year," I said, cold dread settling in my stomach. "If you're looking for money, I have nothing. He took everything." "I'm well aware of your financial situation," he replied, "and I'm not looking for restitution from you." "Then what do you want?" The question came out more vulnerable than I intended. Alexei leaned forward slightly, his gaze intense. "Initially, I wanted information. I had you followed, thinking you might lead us to your husband or the missing funds." The coffee cup nearly slipped from my hands. "You had me followed? For how long?" 3 months. He said it without apology or hesitation. "Long enough to determine you had no contact with him. Long enough to learn about your struggle to provide for your daughter, despite impossible circumstances." Memories flashed through my mind. The weight of being watched. The sensation of eyes following me that I'd dismissed as paranoia. It had been real. He had been watching. "And then what?" I asked, setting the cup down before I dropped it. "You just decided to approach me on a train? Pretend it was coincidence? I decided to offer you a way out," he corrected. "The train was an opportunity I hadn't planned. But I've learned to recognize when fate intervenes." I laughed, a brittle sound with no humor in it. "Fate. Right. So this job offer, what is it really? A way to keep me close in case Mark contacts me? Or is it some twisted form of compensation for what he took?" His expression darkened. "It's an opportunity, Emma, one you desperately need. Your motives for accepting it are your own concern." "And if I refuse?" I challenged, though part of me already knew the answer. "Then you leave here with my regrets and return to your life." His tone was light, but his eyes held a warning, "though I should mention that your former apartment is no longer available to you." "What?" "Your lease was terminated this morning. The building has apparently been sold to a new owner who plans to renovate." He sipped his coffee. Unfortunate timing. Rage and disbelief collided within me. "You bought my apartment building? I acquire distressed properties throughout the city. The timing was convenient." His expression remained impassive, but I sensed something beneath the surface, satisfaction, perhaps, at having removed one more avenue of escape. "This is insane," I whispered, more to myself than to him. "You can't just force someone into working for you by making them homeless." "I'm not forcing you into anything. I'm presenting options." He stood, buttoning his suit jacket in a gesture that somehow emphasized his authority. "Option 1. Accept the position I'm offering. Live in the apartment I've arranged in this building, where your daughter will have access to the best childcare, education, and security. Where you'll earn enough to save for her future, and perhaps even rebuild your own." He moved to the window, gazing out at the city, as if he owned not just this hotel, but everything he could see. Option 2. Decline. Leave with whatever severance Ms. Chen deems appropriate for your almost employment. Find a new apartment, a new job, and continue struggling alone. The unfairness of it burned in my throat. "That's not a choice. That's an ultimatum." He turned back to me, something almost like compassion flickering across his features. "The world rarely offers perfect choices, Emma. Only necessary ones." A knock at the door interrupted us. Anton entered, his expression grave. "Sir, the car with the child has arrived." My heart lurched. "Lily's here?" Alexei nodded. "As promised. Would you like to see her now, or would you prefer some time to compose yourself?" The question, its genuine concern, momentarily disarmed me. He had orchestrated this entire situation, manipulated every variable, yet still seemed attuned to my emotional state. It was this strange blend of control and consideration that made him so disorienting. "I want to see my daughter," I said firmly. Alexei nodded to Anton, who disappeared briefly before returning with Mrs. Wheeler and Lily. My daughter's face lit up when she saw me, her small legs carrying her across the room in an eager rush. "Mommy!" she cried, flinging herself into my arms. I held her tightly, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo, feeling the solid reality of her small body against mine. "Hi, baby," I whispered, tears threatening. "I missed you." "We're having an adventure," she informed me solemnly. "Mr. Anton said we're staying in a castle." I glanced up to find Alexei watching us, his expression unguarded for once. Something in the way he looked at Lily, a softness, a longing, made me wonder what lay beneath his calculated exterior. Mrs. Wheeler approached cautiously, her eyes wide as she took in the luxurious surroundings. "Emma, is everything all right? This is all so sudden." "Everything's fine," I assured her, though nothing could have been further from the truth. "Thank you for bringing Lily, and for watching her last night." She nodded, though concern remained etched in her features. "Will you be staying here?" Before I could answer, Alexei stepped forward, extending his hand to Mrs. Wheeler with a charm I hadn't witnessed before. "Mrs. Wheeler, thank you for your assistance. My staff will ensure you get home safely." He turned to me. "Perhaps Emma would like some time alone with her daughter while you enjoy breakfast downstairs. My treat, of course." The dismissal was polite, but unmistakable. After Mrs. Wheeler had been escorted out, Alexei knelt to Lily's level, his powerful frame somehow softening as he addressed her. "Hello, Lily. My name is Alexei. Your mother is going to be working with me, which means you get to stay in this special place for a while. Would you like that?" Lily regarded Alexei with the unfiltered curiosity only a child can possess, her head tilted slightly as she studied his face. "Is this your castle?" she asked. A smile, genuine, unguarded, transformed Alexei's features. "One of them," he answered, as if this were the most natural question in the world. "Do you like it?" She nodded, clutching her stuffed elephant closer. "It's big and shiny." "Lily," I interrupted, uncomfortable with their interaction, despite its apparent innocence. "Why don't we go see our room? You must be tired after your trip." "Actually," Alexei stood, the brief moment of warmth receding behind his usual controlled demeanor. "I've arranged for a tour of the childcare facilities. I thought Lily might enjoy seeing where she could spend her days while you work." The presumption, again, that I had already accepted his offer, sent a fresh wave of irritation through me, but before I could object, Lily tugged at my hand. "Can we see it, Mommy? Is there toys?" Her eyes, so like mine, wide with excitement. I hesitated, torn between my instinct to protect her from Alexei's influence and my inability to deny her simple pleasures after months of deprivation. "Just a quick look," I conceded. Alexei nodded to Anton, who stepped forward. "Anton will escort you. I have matters to attend to, but we'll continue our discussion over lunch." He checked his watch, a subtle gesture that nonetheless conveyed he was a man whose time was precisely allocated. 1 o'clock in my private dining room. "I haven't agreed to anything yet," I reminded him, keeping my voice low so Lily wouldn't hear. His eyes met mine, that now familiar intensity making my pulse quicken despite my resolve. "You will," he said simply. With those 2 words hanging in the air, he departed, leaving me with Anton and my daughter. I watched Alexei's retreating figure, wondering how a man I'd known for less than 24 hours could be so certain of his power over me, and why part of me responded to that certainty with something other than fear. The child care center occupied the entire 4th floor of the Meridian's West Wing, a space so vastly different from the dingy daycare where I usually left Lily that it might as well have been on another planet. Sunlight streamed through generous windows into rooms filled with educational toys, books, and child-sized furniture. A small indoor playground featured a climbing structure and slide. An adjacent kitchen prepared organic meals tailored to each child's nutritional needs. "We maintain a ratio of 1 caregiver to 3 children," explained the center's director, a warm-voiced woman named Eliza. "All our staff have degrees in early childhood education and undergo rigorous background checks." "How many children usually attend?" I asked, watching Lily as she explored a reading nook with undisguised wonder. "Currently 12. all children of hotel executives or VIP guests. Eliza smiled as Lily discovered a dollhouse nearly as tall as she was. Mr. Volkov personally oversees the funding for this facility. He believes strongly in providing exceptional care for children. The information surprised me. Somehow, I hadn't imagined Alexei Volkov having any particular interest in children's welfare. Has he always been involved with the child care center? Something flickered across Eliza's expression. Caution, perhaps. Mr. Volkov established the center 3 years ago, after he acquired the Meridian. It was a priority for him. And before I could probe further, Lily ran to me, eyes shining. "Mommy, can I stay, please? They have books I never saw before." I knelt beside her, straightening her rumpled shirt. "Maybe, sweetheart. Mommy needs to figure some things out first." Her small face grew serious, displaying that unnerving perceptiveness children sometimes possess. "Are we poor again today?" The question, innocent yet devastating, knocked the breath from me. I hadn't realized she'd understood our circumstances so clearly. "No, baby. We're not poor today." "Good," she said decisively. "I don't like when you cry at night." I swallowed hard, aware of Anton watching us from a discreet distance. How many times had Lily lain awake, listening to me struggle with bills, with worry, with the crushing weight of failing her despite my best efforts. And here was an answer. Problematic, complicated, potentially dangerous, but an answer nonetheless. Being offered by a man whose interest in us I still didn't fully understand. By the time Anton escorted us to our temporary accommodations, a 2-bedroom suite that made the presidential suite seem modest by comparison, I felt my resistance crumbling. Lily ran from room to room, discovering her toys and clothes already unpacked. A small bed with princess sheets prepared, a bathroom with child-sized robes and slippers embroidered with her initial. Mr. Volkov thought the young miss might appreciate these touches, Anton explained, his usually impassive face softening slightly as he watched Lily's delight. I nodded, unable to speak past the tightness in my throat. Every carefully selected detail represented a level of consideration I hadn't experienced since before Mark's betrayal. The fact that it came from a virtual stranger, one with questionable motives and methods, only made it more confusing. After helping Lily change clothes and settle in for a nap, exhausted from the excitement, I found myself standing at the window, staring out at Chicago's skyline. In less than a day, my life had transformed from desperate survival to this rarefied existence, all orchestrated by a man who claimed to know me better than I knew myself. A discreet knock announced Anton. "Mr. Volkov is ready to receive you for lunch," he stated, his accent thickening slightly with formality. "And if I don't go?" I challenged, testing the boundaries of my new reality. Anton's expression didn't change. "Then I will inform Mr. Volkov that you have declined his invitation." Though he would consider it unfortunate. The implied threat hung in the air, though I wasn't certain what form Alexei's displeasure might take. Would he rescind his offer, return us to the streets, or simply wait, confident that necessity would eventually drive me to accept his terms? "Lily is sleeping," I said. "I won't leave her alone." "The suite has a monitoring system," Anton replied. "I will remain in the living area and alert you immediately if she wakes." Realizing I had run out of excuses, I nodded. "Give me a moment to freshen up." In the marble bathroom, I stared at my reflection, the designer dress that fit perfectly, the subtle makeup I'd applied that morning, the woman looking back at me who somehow appeared both familiar and foreign. What was I doing? What choice did I really have? Alexei's private dining room adjoined his office, an intimate space dominated by a table of polished wood and a view of Lake Michigan. He stood when I entered, dismissing the staff with a gesture. "You look troubled," he observed, pulling out a chair for me. "Did Lily not like the child care center?" "She loved it," I admitted, taking the seat. "She loves everything about this place. It's like a fairy tale to her." He poured wine into a crystal glass, offering it to me. "But not to you. Fairy tales usually have monsters, Mr. Volkov." I accepted the glass but didn't drink. "Wolves, witches, evil queens." "Alexei," he corrected, seating himself across from me. "And yes, they do. But they also have protectors, champions." Those who ensure the deserving find their happily ever after. Is that how you see yourself, my champion? I couldn't keep the skepticism from my voice. He studied me for a moment, then leaned forward slightly. What I see, Emma, is a woman who has been betrayed by those meant to protect her, a mother who would sacrifice anything for her child. Someone who deserves more than the hand life has dealt her. His words, their uncomfortable accuracy, penetrated the armor I'd tried to maintain. You followed me for months, I said quietly. You watched me struggle. Why wait until now to approach me? Something darkened in his expression. Initially, you were simply a means to an end, a way to find your husband and what he stole. But the more I learned about you, the more interested I became. Interested, I repeated, the word inadequate for whatever burned in his eyes when he looked at me. I watched you work 3 jobs without complaint, saw you sell your possessions one by one to keep your daughter fed and clothed, witnessed your determination to protect her from the reality of your circumstances. He took a sip of his wine, his gaze never leaving mine. Do you know how rare that kind of loyalty is, Emma? That strength? It's not strength, I countered. It's necessity. Any mother would do the same. No, he said with quiet certainty. They wouldn't. I've seen people with far more advantages than you crumble under far less pressure. Servers entered then, presenting the first course, a delicate seafood creation artfully arranged on bone china. I picked at it while Alexei continued. I approached you now because your situation had become untenable. Your landlord was planning to evict you next week. Your car required repairs you couldn't afford. Your daughter needed medical attention for her recurring infections. He stated these facts dispassionately, yet each one twisted like a knife. I merely accelerated the inevitable. The realization that he knew even these intimate details of our struggle, had known and watched from a distance, sent a chill through me. So this is what? Charity? Pity? This is opportunity, he corrected, his tone hardening slightly. For both of us. What opportunity could I possibly offer you beyond information about Mark? I set down my fork, appetite gone. I've told you. I don't know where he is, or what he did with the money. Alexei was quiet for a moment, calculating. Then, your husband didn't just steal money. He took something more valuable. Information that could compromise certain business interests. People are looking for him, Emma. Dangerous people with fewer scruples than I have. Fear coiled in my stomach. Are you saying I'm in danger? That Lily is? I'm saying that under my protection you never will be. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine in a touch both possessive and reassuring. Accept my offer, Emma. Work for me. Let me keep you and Lily safe. I withdrew my hand, needing distance from the electric current that seemed to flow between us. And the real job? What would that actually entail? Exactly what Ms. Chen described. Managing my schedule here. Coordinating with my other properties. Handling communications I don't wish to deal with personally. He paused. You would be privy to sensitive information. Your discretion would be paramount. Just business matters? I pressed, needing clarity on his expectations. Something like amusement flickered in his eyes. For now, yes. Just business. The implication in those 2 words, for now, hung between us, charged with possibility. I took a sip of wine, buying time to think. And we would live here. In the hotel? In the apartment connected to my suite, he confirmed. It's more secure. You would have your own entrance, complete privacy, but proximity should I need you. The arrangement felt intimate, inappropriate. Yet I couldn't deny the practical advantages. No commute. Lily nearby in the childcare center. Security in a building where Alexei Volkov's word was clearly law. And if I accept, I said slowly, what happens when you find Mark? When you get back whatever he took? His expression turned enigmatic. Let me worry about Mark Reeves. The coldness in his voice sent a shiver through me. I don't want my daughter's father hurt, I said, though Mark had forfeited any right to my loyalty long ago. Whatever he did. Her father abandoned her, Alexei cut in, an unexpected edge to his words. He left her to poverty and uncertainty without a backward glance. He forfeited any claim to your consideration. The vehemence of his response surprised me. You seem personally offended by what he did. I am, he admitted, his voice lowering. Family is sacred, Emma. Those who betray it deserve whatever consequences follow. There was history there. Something raw and personal that went beyond business principles. Before I could probe further, he continued. You have until tomorrow morning to decide, 9 a.m. If you accept, you'll sign the employment contract Ms. Chen has prepared. If not, you'll be provided sufficient funds to secure new housing and a month's expenses. The generosity of the alternative offer surprised me. Why would you do that if I refuse to work for you? He smiled slightly. Because whether you work for me or not, you're already mine to protect. The possessive declaration should have repelled me. Instead, it awakened something long dormant, a yearning to belong, to be valued, to be claimed by someone who wouldn't disappear when responsibility became inconvenient. I'll think about it, I said. Though we both knew what my answer would be, the decision had been made the moment I saw Lily's face light up in the childcare center, the moment I realized what security could mean for her future. Alexei nodded, satisfied. Good. Now, eat. You're too thin. The commanding tone made me bristle even as I complied, taking a bite of the exquisite food. You know, most employers don't comment on their employees' bodies. I'm not most employers, he reminded me, that hint of amusement returning. And you're not most employees. No, I thought as I met his intense gaze across the table. I certainly wasn't. Whatever game we were playing, whatever web he was weaving around me, I was entering it with eyes wide open, for Lily's sake, and perhaps, though I was reluctant to admit it, for my own. 6 months passed like a dream, or perhaps like waking from one. My life with Alexei Volkov unfolded in ways both expected and surprising, the boundaries between employer and protector, between gratitude and something deeper, blurring with each passing day. I signed the contract on that promised morning, the weight of the pen in my hand marking a division between my old life and whatever this new one would become. Lily thrived in the child care center, her recurring illnesses vanishing with proper medical care, her vocabulary expanding as she absorbed everything the enriched environment offered. I watched her transform from a cautious child who hoarded food when she thought I wasn't looking, a habit born from our lean times, into one who laughed freely and slept through the night without fear. My role as Alexei's assistant proved more demanding and complex than I'd anticipated. His business interests extended far beyond the Meridian, encompassing real estate holdings across 3 continents, shipping operations in the Mediterranean, and investment portfolios that required constant monitoring. I coordinated his schedule, arranged his travel, and gradually became the gatekeeper through whom all communications passed. People feared him. This became apparent within days. Business associates, hotel staff, even his own security team approached him with a deference that bordered on dread. Yet with me, he showed a different face, demanding but fair, exacting but appreciative. And with Lily, to my continued surprise, he displayed genuine tenderness. It began with small things. A handcrafted wooden puzzle from Russia appearing in our apartment. A miniature chef's apron when Lily expressed interest in cooking. Careful inquiries about her preferences and progress. He never intruded, never presumed, but his attention to her happiness remained constant. One evening, returning early from a meeting, I found him seated on the floor of our living room, his expensive suit jacket discarded, patiently teaching Lily to play chess on a board inlaid with mother of pearl. Knight to e5, he was saying, his voice gentler than I'd ever heard it. Remember, the knight moves in an L shape. Like this? Lily asked, her small fingers carefully moving the piece. Precisely. The pride in his voice matched the beaming smile on my daughter's face. You're a natural strategist. Neither had noticed my arrival, and I stood frozen in the doorway, struck by the tableau they created, the powerful, dangerous man and the innocent child, connected by something I couldn't quite name. Only when Alexei looked up, catching my eye with an expression almost like guilt, did I realize I'd been holding my breath. That night, after Lily was asleep, he knocked on the door that connected our apartments, a door that had remained closed since our arrival, honoring the promise of privacy. You're good with her, I said when I opened it, echoing his words from our first meeting on the train. She's easy to be good with, he replied, hands in his pockets, somehow less imposing in the casual clothes he wore after hours. Smart, resilient, like her mother. The compliment warmed me despite my determination to maintain professional distance. "She's becoming attached to you," I warned, the fact having both concerned and confused me for weeks. "Is that a problem?" he asked, his eyes searching mine. "It could be." I stepped back, allowing him to enter our shared space for the first time. Children need consistency, permanence. "And you believe I can't provide those things?" There was an edge to his question, not anger, but something like hurt. I chose my words carefully. "I believe your interest in us is tied to finding Mark. Once that happens, nothing changes," he interrupted, moving closer. "My interest in you, in Lily, has nothing to do with your husband anymore." "Then what is it about?" I challenged, needing clarity after months of ambiguity. "Why go to these lengths for a woman you barely know?" He was quiet for a moment, his expression more open than I'd seen since that day with Lily. "I had a sister," he finally said, the admission clearly costing him. "Younger than me by 10 years. When our parents died, I raised her. The revelation stunned me. In 6 months, he had shared almost nothing personal, nothing of his past beyond what was necessary for business. What happened to her?" Pain flashed across his features. "She fell in love with the wrong man, someone who promised her everything, then abandoned her when she needed him most." His jaw tightened. "She died alone, Emma, with her child still inside her." Understanding dawned, sharp and clear. "That's why you followed me. Why all of this?" "Initially, yes," he acknowledged. "You reminded me of Natalia, the same determination, the same loyalty." He moved to the window, staring out at the city lights. "But then it became something else, something I didn't expect." "What?" I barely breathed the question. He turned back to me, his customary mask of control slipping to reveal naked longing. "I found myself wanting to protect you, not because you reminded me of her, but because of who you are." The air between us charged with unspoken possibility. For months, I'd interpreted his care as obligation, his attention as ownership. Now I saw what had been building beneath the surface, his desire not just to possess, but to cherish. "Alexei," I began, unsure what I intended to say. He closed the distance between us in 2 strides, his hand coming up to cup my face. "I don't want your gratitude, Emma. I want your trust, your choice." When his lips met mine, it felt like inevitability, the culmination of tension that had simmered beneath every interaction since that rainy evening on the train. His kiss was both gentle and demanding, respectful, yet hungry with months of restraint. I should have pulled away, should have maintained the boundaries between employer and employee, protector and protected. Instead, I found myself responding with equal fervor, my hands sliding up his chest to his shoulders, drawing him closer. "I've wanted this since I first saw you," he murmured against my lips, soaked from the rain, defiant despite everything. Reality intruded then, breaking the spell. "And Mark? What happens when you find him?" Alexei stiffened slightly, then stepped back, his expression clouding. "We need to talk about that." Cold dread pooled in my stomach. "You found him." Yes, the confirmation was simple, direct. 2 weeks ago, in Singapore, I moved to the couch on unsteady legs, trying to process what this meant. Did you... "He's alive," Alexei said, joining me but maintaining a careful distance. "Though not particularly well. The people he stole from were less restrained than I might have been." Relief warred with apprehension. "What happens now?" "That depends on you." He reached for my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. "Mark has agreed to return the information and what remains of the money. In exchange, the interested parties have granted him a certain amnesty." Just like that. I couldn't keep the skepticism from my voice. "After everything he took?" Alexei's expression turned grim. "Not just like that. I had to make certain guarantees, pay certain debts." He shrugged, as if the cost was inconsequential. "But it's done. He poses no further threat, to my business interests or to you." The implication was clear. He had intervened, likely at significant personal expense, to resolve the situation. Why would you do that for him, after what he did? Not for him. Alexei's eyes held mine, their intensity unwavering. For you. For Lily. So you could choose your future without his shadow hanging over you. My throat tightened with emotion I couldn't name. What choice are you offering exactly? He took both my hands in his expression more vulnerable than I'd ever seen it. Stay with me, Emma. Not as my employee, not as someone under my protection, but as my partner. My equal. Equal? I repeated, unable to keep the doubt from my voice. You control everything, Alexei. My home, my job, my daughter's well-being. Then let it go, he challenged. All of it. The job, the apartment, the childcare. If it's control you fear, I'll release every hold. His grip on my hands tightened. But don't leave. Don't take Lily away. The naked plea in his voice, from a man who commanded rather than requested, shook me. It's not that simple. It can be, he insisted. I've arranged for funds to be transferred to an account in your name. Enough that you need never work again if you choose not to. A home. In your name alone. Wherever you want it. Complete independence. I stared at him, trying to comprehend the magnitude of what he was offering. Why? Why go to these lengths? Because I love you, he said simply, the words falling between us like stones in still water, both of you. And I want you to stay because you choose to, not because you have no choice. 6 months earlier, I would have distrusted such a declaration, seen it as another manipulation. But I had watched this man over time, seen his integrity in business despite his ruthless methods, witnessed his genuine care for my daughter, felt the restraint in his every interaction with me. Whatever Alexei Volkov was, and he was undoubtedly dangerous to his enemies, he had never been anything but honest with me. What about Mark? I asked, needing to resolve this final piece. Will he try to contact Lily? Alexei's expression hardened slightly. He has signed away his parental rights in exchange for his freedom. Legally, he has no claim to her. He paused. Though if you wished her to know him someday, I wouldn't prevent it. The concession, so clearly difficult for him to make, was the final confirmation I needed. This wasn't about control. It was about love. Complicated, perhaps even obsessive, but genuine. I need time, I said finally. To think. To be sure. He nodded, accepting this boundary as he had accepted all others I'd established. Take whatever time you need. He rose to leave, pausing at the connecting door. But know this, Emma. Whatever you decide, you and Lily will never want for anything again. That is my promise to you both. After he left, I sat alone for hours, weighing the past against the potential future. I thought of Mark, his charm, his lies, his ultimate betrayal, and of Alexei, whose methods frightened me, but whose constancy never had. I thought of Lily, secure and happy for the first time in her young life, and I thought of myself, the woman I'd been on that rain-soaked train, desperate and alone, and the woman I'd become under Alexei's protection, stronger, more confident, no longer afraid. Dawn was breaking when I made my decision. I found him in his office, already working despite the early hour. He looked up when I entered, hope and uncertainty battling in his usually guarded expression. I want 3 things, I said without preamble. He set down his pen. Name them. First, I'll accept the funds, the property, the independence. But I want to continue working, not for you, but with you, as a true partner. He nodded, a smile beginning to form. Done. Second, I want your word that your business, whatever parts of it exist in the shadows, never touches our home, never puts Lily at risk. His expression grew solemn. You have it. I've already begun separating certain interests, placing them at appropriate distances. And third, I continued, moving around his desk until I stood before him. I want you to ask me again, not because you're afraid I'll leave, not because you want to possess me, but because you love me. He stood, his hands finding my waist with careful reverence. Emma Reeves, he said, his voice rough with emotion. Stay with me. Build a life with me. Let me love you and Lily as you both deserve to be loved. I reached up, my fingers tracing the strong line of his jaw. Yes, I answered simply, but not because I need your protection or your provision. Because somewhere between that rainy train ride and this moment, I fell in love with you too. His kiss was different this time, not restrained, not calculated, but abandoned to joy. And as I surrendered to it, I realized that sometimes safety could be found in the most dangerous of places, and sometimes the most complex choices led to the simplest truths. 3 years later, as I watch Alexei teaching our son, a dark-eyed, serious baby with his father's intensity and his mother's smile, to stack blocks on the floor of our home, Lily kneeling beside them offering expert 6-year-old advice, I know I made the right choice. Not the perfect choice, perhaps, but the necessary one. The man who sat beside me on a train that rainy evening has never let me go. And I, with eyes wide open and heart fully engaged, have never wanted